On March 15, 2016, our mission trip team headed to the Dominican Republic for 2 weeks of mission service. A professional medical team provided a medical dental clinic, a vacation Bible school team provided VBS at 2 different locations per day, and the rest of our team worked on 3 separate churches. Painting the Fidelidad Church, building a block addition onto an existing Maranatha church in Barcelona, and building a foundation for the Fudeco Church. Our work days were long, beginning at 7 a.m. with breakfast and ending each day at around 8:30 p.m. after supper, worship, and team reports. This video is a report of our mission trip and was produced by the 9th and 10th grade computer lit class. The voices you hear are the students who went as missionaries, and most of them are reading their own words.
There were a total of 42 people in our group, 25 PCA students, and 17 parents and teachers. The mission trip began with a dedication meeting in PCA lobby, where many people came and prayed for us with the pastors. We know that many were praying for us throughout the trip, and we know that those prayers made all the difference. Then we were off to the Spokane International Airport. I could tell that everyone was ready to go because there were lots of smiles and everyone was talking about how excited they were for the trip.
Before the mission trip, I didn't know what to expect. I wasn't scared of the trip because most of my friends are going with me, and I could count on the fact that some of them had already gone on a mission trip like this one before. I did wonder, though, what would this trip be like for me? How could it change me? It was only 2 weeks. That couldn't change me, could it?
Our medical clinic was held in a school close to the foundation crew in Fudeco. Dr. Pierce, Dr. Harbour, and Dr. Christensen led out in the clinic. These head doctors were helped by Montana as a translator, crowd controller, and initial router of patients, a couple of local translators, the head elder from the local church, and me. Throughout the week, I was taking vitals, giving out glasses, and interacting with the children. Near the end of the week, I ran out of glasses. Still continuing to take vitals, I had spare time between patients. Often, I would go into the exam rooms and see what the doctors were treating and how they are treating it, keeping in mind my interest for medicine. However, at some point, I looked around and saw that we were not using the gloves with the patients. As a team, we later came to the conclusion that it was because of our love for the patients. We were allowing ourselves to come in direct contact with the sick, just as Jesus did when he was on earth. I personally saw this as an opportunity to use some of the gloves as balloons, since we brought a suitcase full of gloves and protective masks. I then used most of my time to make balloons, draw faces on them, each being unique, and give them to the children in the clinic. While families were waiting for the doctors to determine a specific illness, I would also sometimes go in with a glove balloon, and we would play a simple game of keep the balloon in the air. This would end with the balloon being given to the family, especially the little ones.
This is what I learned on the mission trip. I learned that my dad could pull teeth from 20 plus people per day, and that it takes a lot of strength to pull teeth. I learned the names of a lot of dental tools and what they were used for. And I watched people endure a lot of pain just to get rid of the intense discomfort they were having in their mouths. Finally, I learned how grateful people were after the pain was gone. We had kids and elderly people come up to us and hug us and thank us profoundly. I even had the chance to pull my first tooth.
I was on the VBS team, and we conducted 2 VBSs per day, one in the morning and one in the afternoon. We went there to tell these kids about Jesus and his love, but in one of the places, the kids didn't listen. They would keep talking to the point you couldn't even hear what anyone was saying. There were people outside of the church throwing pebbles at us and hissing at us. Finally, Monique, our translator, had to end VBS in the village. It was as though the kids didn't have any respect for what we were doing. They seemed focused on the free stuff and the food, not on our message.
We hugged all of the children goodbye. Then we closed ourselves up inside the church, stood in a circle, and prayed before we sang songs to leave a piece of Jesus behind for them. Then we walked down the hill to our waiting bus. Before we started to drive away, a little girl came and put her hand on the window. I lifted my hand and rested it on the other side of the glass. We looked into each other's eyes. She became imprinted in my heart and mind. I will forever remember her face.
The last thing I saw as we pulled away was a group of kids watching us. One girl was standing in the middle of the little group crying. Her name was Amanda. When we first came, some of my friends on the paint team had warned me to keep an eye on her because she was a troublemaker and the other kids always followed her example. However, she helped us set up chairs when we got there, and I had often seen her telling other kids to be quiet. I never saw her talk or yell during VBS. Even though our experience at Fidelidad was kind of rough, I know I remember the kids there, and I hope that they remember us too. We found a new place to have our afternoon VBS, and it was fun. Everything went well the rest of the week.
I met a person at VBS who really touched my heart. His name is Jose. He is about 10 years old. He latched onto me right from the beginning. He would teach me words in Spanish, and I taught him English words. He would come up and hug me every day. The last day there was very sad, but I will always remember him. After seeing lots of poverty, it made me feel very thankful for all that God has given me. I felt the Holy Spirit a lot on this trip. I saw God's love too. I saw how happy these people were, even with the little things they have.
On the last Friday night, some of us had communion with the Fidelidad Church, and some had communion with the Fideco Church. I began to dread the end of the service, knowing that it would mean leaving them for the last time. When the service was over, we all began to mill around and help clean up. We started taking pictures and saying goodbye. One of the little girls, Renee, came up to me to give me a big hug. She looked up into my eyes and in English said, "I like you," with a big smile on her face. I had been crying a little already, but when she said that, I broke down. Hearing Renee tell me that was amazing. It made me realize that I had made a difference in at least one child's life.
What I learned on this mission trip was how to paint a church, the Fidelidad Church. I had no experience painting a building before. I had no clue what this was going to be like. I thought to myself, how hard could it be? But how wrong I was. I learned that paint will get all over you. Also, you have to be very careful painting the windows. You have to make sure that you get every spot on the window. Plus, if you have too much paint on your brush, it will start to run. All of us learned from our mistakes. The other thing we learned was how to say no. The community children would start to take our paint supplies and try to mess up our painting. We said no to them a lot, but it was very difficult not to be angry. We began to dislike the children because they were not being kind.
Disliking the children for their actions made us frustrated with ourselves. Those days taught me something I would never forget. I went into the project thinking that we would just paint the church. It would be that easy. Even though we hadn't painted something like that before, we would paint it. It would be hard, but we would do it, and then we would leave. In the end, the hardest part of the project was not painting the church, but leaving the people we had grown to love. I never thought the most challenging part of the trip would also be the hardest thing for me to let go of when we finally left the church for the last time.
On the first Friday night, some of the paint crew members got to attend a baptism in Fidelidad Church. One of the girls that was baptized really touched my heart. Her smile showed how much she truly wanted to belong to God. As she came out of the water, her face practically glowed with happiness. Everyone should be this happy to belong to God.
Waking up at 6 o'clock every morning and working laying block for 8 hours was something I had never done before. Someone who really touched me on the trip was Salvador, one of our Maranatha workers that helped us on the block crew. He worked very hard all week and was always smiling. Near the end of the week, we found out that he had a terrible toothache. Fortunately, Dr. Anderson was able to take care of his tooth and infection. It was amazing to me that Salvador could be so happy when he was in so much pain.
While we were working one day on the Sabbath School edition, Bato, one of our Maranatha workers, disappeared for a while and we didn't know where he had gone. After a short period of time, we saw him coming back. When I say coming back, I don't mean he was walking down the street like he had gone for a stroll. I mean he was riding on the back of a motorcycle. On top of that, he wasn't just riding on the back of a motorcycle, he was riding on the back of a motorcycle with a few 20-foot pieces of PVC pipe over his shoulder. When he pulled up next to the church, he just hopped off and put the pipe in the church like nothing had happened, and got back to work like that was a normal happening. Thinking back on it, I realized that what may have seemed crazy to us was normal, everyday life for them.
On this mission trip, I was on the block crew. At first I got put on the paint crew, and to be honest, I wasn't really excited about that. But I decided that I was going to the Dominican Republic to work for the people and for God, and not for myself. So I was ready to do whatever was asked of me. But when our group added the Sabbath School block building, I got moved to that team, and I was a lot more excited about doing God's work. I learned how to work hard, even when there was a lot of work and when it seemed like there was no end to it. But we finished on time and had some extra time to begin working on the bathrooms and baptistry inside the building. I think that on this mission trip, I felt God's presence a lot more and truly understood how much God cared about us. There were times when it took a miracle to carry us through, but we made it. God is great.
Our team built a foundation for the Fideco Church. That meant we built the forms for the footings and foundation and installed the rebar. Besides mixing and pouring lots of concrete, we worked hard, and it wasn't easy to keep a good spirit. But we still had a smile on our faces. No matter what happened, God put a smile on us. And it wasn't a fake smile either. It was a smile from our heart.
I was one of the girls on foundation crew. I learned how to make a frame for foundation. I learned how to make concrete and what goes into cement. I learned how to communicate with people without understanding their language. People would come and watch us work for hours. When they saw us girls working, they said that they never saw a woman work before. I loved the way I got burned, got bitten, and felt sore all over. I also got closer to God. I saw Jesus work through me and through others. I became more humble and loving towards the other people around me. I was made stronger physically and emotionally, and I became more thankful for what I have.
One of the workers at the foundation job site needed work shoes. I had a translator to ask him what his shoe size was, and it was the same size as me. I gave him the shoes that I had worked in that week, and they fit him perfectly. He was extremely happy. It felt great to give him my shoes.
This mission trip impacted me a lot. I learned how to be more kind to people and accept and include them, even if I didn't necessarily like their actions. On this trip, I also saw how people from other countries are different from each other. At the end of this trip, however, I didn't even recognize those differences anymore. They all seemed friendly and kind.
Very surprising to me was how the people lived. It made the phrase, "America is one of the richest countries," very real to me. When I returned to the States, the small houses in the bad neighborhoods looked awesome in comparison. Many people in the DR live in almost what I would classify as a shack. From what I understand, there is a lot of unemployment. I will never again doubt that I am very privileged. I knew the people in that country were going to be poor, and at first it was a little shocking. The thing that touched me the most was the communion service. I loved it because the people were worshiping God in a very earnest way. The rest of the trip lacked the calmness of the last Friday night. I could see how God gave peace to these people's souls. The contrast between how they normally live and how they are when they are praising God is so different you cannot help but notice it. They regard worshiping God for what it really is, a privilege.
This trip has taught me many things. When we were still in the airplane, I could see from the air that the Dominican Republic was a poor place. On our first day of travel to our job site, we drove down an extremely bumpy road. The houses we passed were either made out of sheet metal or rough brick. The doors barely held. We in America are so privileged, but we take everything for granted. We complain and get all stuck up. The people in the DR were happy with little things. This trip taught me not to complain if I don't have Starbucks and not to get angry if the AC stops working for a day. I have been truly humbled.
This mission trip has taught me so much about myself, others, and God. I feel ashamed at how much I depended on other things that didn't matter. Now I am a new person. This mission trip has changed the way I think, the way I feel, and the way I act. It has impacted me in ways I can't even begin to explain. I feel less attached to worldly things and more connected in my walk with God. I am forever changed by this experience.
This trip was a huge blessing to our group, and we pray it was a blessing to those we connected with in the Dominican Republic. Our theme song for the trip was, "If You Say Go." The song talks about tackling tough things, and we had our share of obstacles to overcome on the trip. When one of the leaders had to cancel coming 2 days before we left, God miraculously provided a new leader and the miracle of the airlines agreeing to change the name on the ticket, even though it was past the deadline for the name change.
When we arrived in the Dominican Republic, we were told that our team would not be able to accomplish all of the tasks we had been assigned, because we were spread too thin. Not only did the teams complete the painting of the church, the building of the Sabbath School addition on another church, and the foundation of another church, but God blessed our teams with time to do more than we had originally been asked. In addition, many people were helped in the medical and dental clinics, and children were introduced to Jesus through the vacation Bible schools. Men said it couldn't be done, but God had other plans for us.
If you say go, we will go. If you say wait, we will wait. If you say step out on the water and they say it can't be done, we'll fix our eyes on you and we will come. If you say go, we will go. If you say wait, we will wait. If you say step out on the water and they say it can't be done, we'll fix our eyes on you and we will come. Your ways are higher than our ways, and the plans that you have laid are good and true. If you call us to the fire, you will not withdraw your hand. We'll gaze into the flames and look for you. If you say go, we will go. If you say wait, we will wait. If you say step out on the water and they say it can't be done, we'll fix our eyes on you and we will come. Your ways are higher than our ways, and the plans that you have laid are good and true. If you call us to the fire, you will not withdraw your hand.